This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
Subject. So if you have some problems that we cannot reply you in person immediately, we will find out. And if you are unsatisfied with our solutions, you can come to Purish, and he will give you the best answer. And if you still unsatisfied with Purish's address, so I don't know where to go. Anyway, data and tools. So what this subject mainly about is about we use some analysis techniques to analyze data and to interpret some practical issues within the property data sector, property sectors. So before we start today's lecture, maybe we can just do a game to warming up. So if you could please go to this website, that says poll everywhere, and maybe just based on your understanding about data analysis and ranking the 5 attributes. So which one you think that's the most important, like this one? So you can just simply ranking. Yeah, and then sum it, and we will see how you feel the most important or the second or the least important attribute in this subject. And while you do this, maybe you can also say hello to the classmates or your friends or some strangers nearby, and introduce yourself to others. And because we will have a group presentation in week 6, so it is maybe good opportunity for you to start to find your colleagues. And just adding some background. So this is just a very short video. It gives you a little bit about
Australian property prices on the news again, as they always seem to be of late. In February 2019, the latest figures from CoreLogic show that property prices fell a further 0.7% nationally, with Perth and Darwin experiencing the greatest declines, slumping 1.5 and 1.
It doesn't show. Okay.
0.7% respectively. Sydney and Melbourne both fell 1.0%, while Hobart was the only capital where house prices went up by 0.8%. Even places like Brisbane and the regional centres are running out of steam, both falling 0.3%. In terms of annual growth, or lack thereof, Sydney and Melbourne are leading the pack with falls of 10.4 and 9.1% respectively. Perth and Darwin have also suffered significant losses at 6.9 and 5.3% respectively. Hobart is the only state capital to show any signs of a property boom, with a gain of 7.2% over the last year. Personally, I don't want to live in Tasmania, so I find that quite surprising. Taking a look now at median house prices, it can be seen that Sydney and Melbourne are still the most expensive markets at around $789,000 and $629,000 respectively. Canberra comes in next at around $594,000. The other capitals are hovering around the $400,000 to $500,000 mark. Tim Lawless, head of research at CoreLogic, says that house price falls are now extending well beyond the previously booming Sydney and Melbourne markets. He stated, "Every market in Australia is losing steam. We are seeing this downturn becoming quite widespread geographically. I think that's a real indicator that lending conditions are throwing quite a dampening blanket over the market entirely." In addition to tougher lending standards, Mr. Lawless also mentioned some other factors that are potentially hurting the property market. He said, "We've seen a lot of new supply coming into the market from newly constructed housing, especially in the high-rise apartment sector. We've seen a real slowdown in foreign buying activity, and of course we're also still seeing affordability challenges in markets like Sydney and Melbourne, despite the fact that values have come down in Sydney now by 13% and in Melbourne by nearly 10% since the peak." Mr. Lawless also spoke of the increasing number of properties on the market due to a lack of buyers. Consequently, owners are less likely to want to sell due to the falling market. He said, "We're seeing vendors, understandably, are quite reluctant to be putting their property into the market when selling conditions are quite challenging. Compared to last year, the number of new listings being added to the market is down by nearly 20% across the capital cities. But because properties are taking longer to sell, and we've seen buyer numbers fall by around 15% or so over the past year, it means total inventory levels out there are now very high. So buyers have a lot of stock to choose from. They can negotiate very hard and they can really take their time." He predicts that in around 2020, prices will start to stabilise, but of course we all know the result of predictions. They usually fall flat. He said, "Probably somewhere in 2020 we'll start to see the market levelling out. There's a lot of moving parts here, and if we do see interest rates coming down, for example, which seems more likely now than it was a few months ago, we might see a little bit of extra stimulus come into the market. But the big question there is, even if interest rates do come down, how much will we see the lenders passing those rate cuts on, and how much effect will it have on the market?" What are your thoughts on Mr. Lawless's predictions? Will interest rates go down? Will markets level out in 2020? Or is the property market just one big bubble ready to have a giant pin stuck into it? Let me know your thoughts below. Australian property prices are in the news.
Okay. Yes, let me introduce to Dr. Neeraj. Yeah, he's a PhD in urban planning. And he's really good at spatial analysis and GIS systems. And he will be tutoring in 3 tutorials over this semester. Yeah. Okay. So let's see the results of. I'm so excited with the exam. So just in recall to the video and just we just watched. So it's like the thing we heard is numbers, right? And the market, supply, demand. And then they make some comments on the current or contemporary condition of the market. And then they also mention several times about the factors. So what the factors cause, what the factors lead to increase, the factors lead to the decrease. And also based on their findings on the current condition, they also did some prediction or forecast. So to predict what's the future trends, or based on the current situation, or based on the current policy, what the future trend might be. So that's basically what the data analysis are going to produce. All right. So through this semester, we expect you guys, probably you can also, for a particular practical issues, you may identify the correct data and use the proper method to run the modeling or the analysis, and then to produce some analyzed results. And also, one step further, based on the results, what is your opinion on those results? What you can interpret, or you can tell the audience, or tell the investor, tell the government, or maybe the individual buyers to make the correct decision. Okay, and okay, let's see what do you think the most important? That's the information and the data related to the property. Okay, and second is the property economic market theory, mathematics, econometrics, writing, computer. Well, I think that's exactly the requirement for this subject. Okay, so when I assess your final report, I mean, this is how the mark will be distributed. Okay, we will see whether you can find the most important thing is that whether you can find the correct data, whether the data is reliable, can really reflect the situation. Okay. The second is whether you can apply a correct theoretical model or theoretical framework to explain the issue, and also we need some analysis techniques. I mean, although the techniques we will touch on some knowledge and theory about the techniques. However, we are not go very deeply to the techniques. What for this subject purpose is that we expect you can apply those techniques systematically and can use within the statistics software, and also how your ability to present those to present your findings, your papers, how to make the your report visualize friendly, and so under this one, I mean, if you have more interested, we can talk maybe more in the tutorial, but not in the lectures. The lecture we just talk about the basic function of the software and the computer package. Okay, then we move on to the subject introduction. Just give a quick introduction of the subject. So here are the 4 learning objectives, which I'm probably not going to repeat one by one, and you can find them on the subject guideline, which already been uploaded on the LMS. And the subject will has a weekly will has a 2-hour lecture and 1 following tutorial per week, and also we will have 4 assessment at different stage of over the learning experience. And here is the schedule of the lecture or of the subject. Mainly the subject composes of 3 parts, or maybe 4 parts. Okay, the first part is week 1 to week 3. So where we mainly focus on the theories. So the generalize the theory or concept of market and economics. That is what we, particularly in property market, that is what we are going to learn today. And in the following 2 weeks, we are going to learn some more particular a theory about house price, house supply, and demand. And then part 2 was the software introduction. So it is week 4 to week 5. And week 6, there is no lecture. And that will be the presentation week. Okay, so in that week, you're gonna finish your assignment 2, and you are going to present in front of us in the lecture, in the theater. And then after that, that is the data analysis. So we are going to introduce different techniques for different types of data analysis, which are time series data, cross-sectional data, and also some of the spatial data analysis as well. And finally, the last part is the interpretation of the analysis results, and maybe we will touch on a little bit about parallel data analysis and maybe a little bit qualitative data analysis. Okay, so however, this one will not be assessed by this subject. Other question? No?
How many members?
Sorry?
How many members should be in the group at the presentation?
2 to 3. Yeah. Yeah, that's the learning outcome. That's what we expect you guys can learn from this subject. And again, as I mentioned, this is the first time I teach and Niras teach in this subject. So this is the target we set, and I'm not sure whether we are always on the right track. So if you find any problem, and if you say, okay, look, I find that this is not right, can we do this? Please don't be hesitate. Just let me know, and probably we can improve our teaching. Yes?
So you're going to practice with open source software for statistics?
Sorry?
Are we going to practice with open source software like R or statistics?
SPSS, not R.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But that one is paid. So if you want to install it in your computer, you have to buy the license.
In the computer labs, they all install the SPSS. We all have the package installed. I mean, yeah, unless you will never come to the campus, I mean, you could finish most of your work in campus if you using the SPSS. Of course, if you have other preference like the R, maybe you can choose the software which you think suits you the best. However, for the lectures and for the teaching, we based on SPSS mainly for the statistic or the econometric analysis, and we will use the QGIS mainly for the spatial analysis. Okay. Yes. This is the assessment we're going to have. So the assessment is set like maybe we can treat it like a semi-practical based or project-based assessment. So now I think maybe you guys can imagine yourself as a consultant or employee working in a consultant company, and now you are required to do analysis for a certain property issues. So, and then you are going to report to your boss, or maybe me and Niraj, about your progress. So the first stage is that you have to prove that you are able to identify or you are familiar with the data or the data source. Okay, you know what the data, where the data is from, what data means, what the data can be used for, and is there any limitation of data or what the advantage of data. That is assignment 1. And then once you prove that, you are going to find your colleagues or team members to work together for assignment 2, which is a group presentation. That is the identification of your research or project proposal. Okay, so you are going to identify the topic you are going to explore over this semester, and also you have to prove or convincing us that you are able to deliver the analysis at the end of the semester. Okay, that's assignment 2. So after the presentation, you will receive some feedbacks from me and Niraz, and then probably you can revise or improve your original topic a little bit, and then you can do your own or individual analysis. So assignment 3 and assignment 4, that's the individual assignment. So assignment 3, we can treat this like a pre-analysis, a pre-data analysis. So it's like, okay, that is the data you find, though you do a series of tests to see whether it is the data you exactly looking for. If not, probably you can change or improve a little bit. And finally, you are required to write a report, a final report for your topic. So, and this one is very important, which is accounting for 60% of all your mark, of your total mark. Okay. Any question? No. I mean, I believe you guys must know all the what's it called, academic conducting code, right? And only one thing I want to highlight here is the plagiarism. Okay, so because in this subject, maybe many students will work on the same topic, and probably you will use the same data. Okay, however, I mean, the writing must be different from each other. Okay, so you can talk, you can discuss with each other. I mean, maybe you can use even the same analysis method. However, the writing or the presentation or the interpretation of the results of the method of the research you did should be different from each other. Okay, so you cannot give the similar report at the end. So that's pretty much the introduction of the subject. Any questions so far? All good? Okay, then we will move on to today's content. Excuse me. Sorry, I've got a cold. I have to have some water. One thing I want to mention here is the economics. Probably we are not going to go very deeply about the theory of economics. And what I want to say here is that economics is just a subject which which study or analyze the individuals, how and why the individual makes the decision on their business or on their commercial activities. Okay, so this is basically speaking, the economics is a study about how we use or optimize the resources and to produce and to distribute the product. Okay, and it covers like the GDP, interest rate, exchange rate, employment, trade, etc. How many of you guys have learned economics before? Okay, smaller proportion than I expected. Okay, so someone who do not know, ask them. Okay, if you want to know more about economics, and then the market, and the market. Originally speaking, market is a place where people, or simply speaking, is people we buying or selling stuff. Okay. However, nowadays, because of the internet, people now don't have to selling stuff at a physical place. We can trade online. So nowadays, probably the market becoming more and more invisible. However, no matter does the market change, there was something will never change. That is, the market is about the buyers and the sellers, and to a certain level of price. Okay, and the basic market theory is the price to quantity. Okay, so it's the price. Normally we regard this, the price is the determinant to the producer. If the price is higher, maybe the producer will decide to produce more quantities. On the other hand, maybe the higher price will reduce the demand for a certain product, and the market can be regarded as can be classified into 4 categories. One is the perfect competition market. So in that market, I think one most important assumption is that all the information are equal to both sides. So the buyers and the sellers, they know exactly the same, and also they assume all the products traded in the market are homogeneous, which means the same. So we are buying and selling only one, exactly the same product. So in the reality, I think maybe for the aggregate market, for the fruit market, or like apples, bananas, they could also be regarded as a perfect competition market. And then is the imperfect competition market, which is, in this market, the product becomes heterogeneous. That means they are different from each other. Maybe, for example, the smartphone. maybe they are different in branding, different in functions, etc. Okay, and here we count some small and media. I mean, the majority of the supply is the small and media companies. There are many of sellers, and they are compete with each other. And I think most of the products is in imperfect competition. And also the next one is the oligopoly market, where within this market there is only several supply, and the markets, the main purpose of the markets is that they focus on the stable, like the banking, like the banks, okay? And the last one is the monopoly market, which is there is only one supplier dominate the market, and nowadays in most of the country, this is forbidden. You can hardly find in the reality. And in the market, it refers to the market, there is one thing I want to highlight is the market equilibrium. The reason why I highlight this is that I think all the, not all, maybe majority of the, this is the hypothesis which is widely used in analysis. Okay, so for example, if we are going to analysis, we are going to establish a model, we assume maybe there is a market equilibrium. And then based on these assumptions, then we can identify the parameters to see whether what are the factors that remind me, is a break time? Not yet. What are the factors may drive the market away from the equilibrium? And again, because of there is an equilibrium point, it will drive the market back to the stable point. So I mean the statement is very simple. It's like in the market, for example, that's the price per unit, and that's the quantity of goods, and then the supply goes up as the price go up, and the demand goes down as the price go up. And then at this point, the supply equals the demand. That is the equilibrium. Any point above the equilibrium, that's the excess supply. And the oversupply will drive the price going down. And at the same time, the quantity will go down. And on the other hand, anywhere under the point, that's the excess demand. So if there were more demand than supply, it will drive the product price up, and then encourage the producer to produce more products. So that's a very simple and basic, but very important theory, or maybe we can call it a kind of philosophy. If you believe this, then you will build your model or build your or establish your research on this belief. Okay. Then we'll move on to the property. So we always see there were two terms when we mention the housing. One is a real estate and a real property. So are they the same or different? Yeah, they are different. However, sometimes we use inter-exchange, right? Actually, real estate then mainly refers to something visible or physical. So the real estate is mainly includes the land and any improvements on the land. So when I say improvements, that means the structure, the house, the building, and also the sewage, or maybe the what else? The power, etc. Okay, and also any attachment on the land and any fixtures in the house or in the improvement. So does furniture belongs to real estate or not? Furniture? No. Yeah, because they can be removed. It belongs to personal property. Okay, and then property, they are more intangible. So it refers some rights or benefits or interests by owning a real estate. So it's kind of your rights or your benefits from the ownership. Okay. Normally we call this like a bundle of rights. Okay, so when you buy a house, you have a series of rights. You can like use it, you can live in, you can sell it, you can lease it, you can rebuild it. So that's the rights. That is the real property, and for why we call this bundle of rights, because you can treat the rights individually. You don't have to treat them as a whole. You can just treat your leasing rights by sign a lease contract with a tenant for a couple of years or for several years, etc. And I'm not sure. Here's a video. If you have this, maybe you can watch back home. Probably we don't have time to watch on the lecture. And then we comes to the major sector of real property. So there are 5. Normally we classify the property sector into these 5 sectors. So office property, which provide the spaces for interconnecting with people, socializing, doing business, etc. So then it requires those type of property should be located in a central place where the people are convenient to the transport, etc. And the second type of property is the retail property. So they provide the spaces for buying and selling products. So just like the market, right? The physical market. And nowadays we can find a lot of retail centers, either in the big in the CBD or in the suburbs. And according to the skills of the centers, it can be classified into different categories, like regional retail center, sub-regional center, neighborhood retail centers. So, and the third type is the industrial property, okay, where we use this type of property to produce goods, or do manufacturing, we do some service, etc. And nowadays, the hottest topic of this type property is the reuse of post-industry land or property. So, for example, because of the progress of technology, lots of the traditional industry, they are closing down. So how can we use the previous industry land is now becoming more and more important. So, for example, I think in Beijing the Winter Olympic, they are used all the Olympic stadium and the area is used to be iron company, which is called Shougang, and they redevelop the old factory and becomes Olympic game area. And the fourth one is the non-income property. Normally they are owned by the government or some charity church and non-profit organizations. One typical example is the retirement village. So again, it's like as the baby boom generation enter their senior age, so maybe there are more demand for the senior housing. And however, at this stage, most of the retail village or majority of the retail village in Australia are operating by in the format of non-income producing. So it doesn't mean there is zero income. It just means the income. So if you can see the annual report of one village in the example, it does have income. However, just the income can just cover the annual expense. Okay, so it doesn't. So I mean, the operator or the developer, it doesn't add the profit on the development purpose, on the development or on the project. Yes.
What if it's a privately owned retirement village, not an aged care facility, but a retirement village?
Yes.
Where they pay and there's full profit.
Yes. I mean that's a good question. There are two types of retirement village. Okay, so it depends on who is the operator. So some operator they are non-for-profit. So in that case, they still charge the residents a certain of money. However, that money is just cover for the money they spend to build the village, to maintain the village, or to hire some staff in the village. They don't make money by operating the village. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but which one would it still be non-income producing despite?
Yes, that's still non-income producing.
It's still, even it's for profit.
Yes, as they decline, that's non-income. Although they sold a very expensive one, like $300,000 for 99 or for 99 leasehold, I think. You don't own. In the retail village, you don't own the land. You just buy that's a leasehold sale. It's not a life. And the last sector is the one which we are going to focus is the residential sector. Okay, and throughout this subject, we are just focused on the housing or residential property. Okay, we are not doing other types of building or properties. And according to Victoria government, those residential property can be further classified into 4 categories. So the first one, which is a separate house. So that means there is only one dwelling unit in a single block. Okay, and then if you have 2 or more, then it's called units. But it's one. But they only have 1 level. And if you have 2 or more levels, they call this townhouse. And then we have the multi-unit residential building, which normally we call apartment. Okay, though this is I think that's the briefing of the economics markets and property markets. So why I'm talking here is just in case some of you guys you do not have or may not have any property background. So in this case, you can be getting familiar with it, and who already have the background, maybe you can recall what you have learned. So I think, that's another thing. Sorry. That's the features of property market. So because the property are different from other goods, right? That's lead to the property market having some unique features comparing with the normal goods or normal product. The first one is the durability. So because all the property, they are durable. Even the land, we know the land never depreciates. The land will always be there. And even the houses, they can last for maybe 30 or 40 or even longer. So that will lead to a situation on the property market that is the old or the existing stock is much more than the new stock. Okay, it's not like the other, for example, cell phone, right? So what on the current market stock, they are all brand new. You can, the second-hand stock is only a very small proportion. However, in the property market, the existing or the what we call second-hand or maybe fourth-hand products, they contain the majority or they contain the major proportion of the market stock. Another unique feature is the immobility, because the house or the property cannot be removed or cannot be transferred. Then it requires the demander will move to the product rather than the product move to the demander or the potential buyers. Okay, and also another thing is the heterogeneity and the immobility. They lead to the segmentation in the property market. So the property market, just as I mentioned, according to the function, it can be divided into 5 sectors. So these five types of property market, they probably are different from each other. So maybe when you analyze the residential property, you may have to look into these this group of factors or data. However, when you research on maybe office properties, you may you have to working on other factors. So, and another feature is the lagged response. Okay, that's because of the duration of construction. That means even though the supplier, they know the demand going to increase tomorrow. However, maybe they know they want 1,000 houses tomorrow. However, they cannot produce 1,000 houses in one day. So this will lead to the property market response to the market change within line. And another one is the high transaction cost. So this one reason is that the high cost are all the high unit price of the houses. So we know all the houses, they worth like maybe $200 and even $300 more. And also there was a very seriously asymmetric information between the buyers and the sellers. Therefore, they have to make the transaction through a third party, like an NGC or convenient. That will lead to a high transaction cost. So either the buyer pay the transaction fee to their lawyers, or the sellers pay the transaction cost to the agents, etc. And the last one, which is the most important one, is the durability. So most of the properties, they have the dual utility. So we buy a property either for use or for investment. So you can buy a house for yourself living, and or you can buy a house for renting from the investment purpose to generate the cash income. So then in that case, the property market can be regarded as a stock market, and at the meantime can be treated as an asset market. So it has the features of both asset market and the stock. The stock market, not the stock, or it's just the space market for the renting market. And I think that's the time we can have a break. During the break, maybe you can think about these questions. And can I ask you to do me a favor? So will you guys stand up, and then you move one row? So you go to the back, and then you move one row in front. So then you can maybe change your neighbors, and we can stand up and change your seat. I just don't want you guys to sleep, okay? And we will be back 5 past 10. 5 past 11. Architecture. Yes, it is recording. It is recording. So you are from architecture. Have you got any background?
Oh, no. I
Hello? It doesn't work. It works.
When you stand here, it works. When you stand here, it doesn't work. But I increase the volume now. I just use the volume.
Test. Hello. Hello. It works, right?
Yeah, I do.
Hello. 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 Test. Test. Test.
Hello. 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 No, it doesn't work. Hello. Okay. Hello. Testing. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, probably that's the range of.
But I increase the volume. It may work better.
Yeah.
I can. You can make it full. Then it gets.
Hello? Hello? So can we make a start? Then we can finish early. All right. So can everyone hear me? In the back? Yes. Better? Okay. So yes, where are we? How can we read and predict market activities? Okay. So this is probably what we are going to do throughout this subject. And there is one theory I want to introduce. That's how we can read and how we can read the market activities. So I mean this is not the only one how we read the market activities. That's we can see the market activity from different perspectives. However, I think this from this perspective, it's easy to understanding, okay, which is called four-quadrant model, okay, which is the basic idea of four-quadrant model is that based on the dual utility of property or the dual utility of property market. So as we can see that the market, we have the supply, demand, and we divide the market in one is the space market, and where the participants here are mainly for using the houses, and on the other hand, on the other side, that's the asset market, where most of the participants, they enter into this market for investment. So they invest the houses to gain the income, or the annual income, or monthly income, or they can sell them for capital gains. And then we can read the model by each quadrant. So on the space, on this quadrant, which is the rent, the rent is the major determination in this quadrant, where people we rent the houses, and the tenant pay the rent for using the houses. And see here, at a certain demand level, the rent is the determination. And there is a negative relationship between the rent and the stock of space. So here is a concept of bid rent. That is, for example, if you are going to rent a house within the CBD, near to the CBD, okay? So in this area, we have fewer stock. So therefore, you have to pay higher rent to rent the house nearby the CBD. And then if you move away, move far from the CBD, then the space getting bigger. You have more available houses, and then the rent will decline. And again, if you move even further, and the rent will keep decline, and the available houses or the available spaces are increasing. And in that way, we can establish some like the zoning, or that's the central radiation of a city. Okay, so here is an example which I'm just do a very simple collection through the realestate.com.au. So if we find this is basically the rent for 2-bedroom house in Melbourne, and we can find the rent in Melbourne CBD is $630, and the rent dropped to $600 in Richmond, and even lower in where is it? As the distance, as it's further from the Melbourne CBD. So if we just plot all the rent on the diagram, then we can find there is a curve, and this is the decline trend of the rent. So here is just a very simple example to show the rent in the space market. The rent will go down. Will go down as the distance to CBD increases. And again, in the asset quadrant, so since we can receive, or the house owner, we can receive the rent from the space quadrant, then it in the asset market, the rent will be regarded as the income. So, for example, if you have like $200 per week for your rent income, that's equivalent to roughly 10,000 per year. That means you have a 10,000 annual income. So in that case, how much money you would like to pay in once to generate a continuous annual income of $10,000? That is the basic theory in the asset market. And the most important thing, how we calculate the value, we calculate the value at a certain capital rate. So this rate is could be the expectation of your return. For example, if you say, okay, I expect on this investment, I require a 10% annual return. So then the capitalized rate is 10% or maybe 0.1. Or if you are thinking about the opportunity lost. So it's like, for example, I know if I invest this amount of money into the stock market or the share market, I can there is like a 50% return. So in that case, if I invest in the property market or property asset market, so I have to cover the loss which I'm potentially can gain from the share market. Okay, so there are many ways to calculate the capital rate. Or maybe if you just want to invest your money in the property market to hedge the risk, maybe okay, I will say okay. For example, the long-term treasury bond is like say 5%. Then okay, then that is the capital rate you use. So it's like for different purpose of investment, you can calculate different capital rate, and of course for the perspective of bank, they may use the nominal interest rate, okay, which nowadays is only like 3% or so, okay. And here is an example on how the theory works in the asset market. So actually, that is my personal story. Currently I'm buying a house. Just tried looking for a house, and I saw there was a house for sale in Geelong, and currently the house is rent at $300 per week. So based on my knowledge, okay, I'll calculate how much should I pay for that house, which I sell, and the 5% is currently the mortgage rate, which I can gain from the bank. Okay, so I'm not greedy, so I use the 5%, and then I calculate. So probably this unit should worth for $353,000, and what the agent gives me, the estimate value is this much, and that's the offer I give. However, originally, this unit was sold at $385,000. It's even $20,000 more than the maximum estimate value. Okay, so I mean, what we can see is that using this method, we can generate a good prediction. Okay, so we say 350, 380. I mean, the accurate rate is still around, I think, over 80%, right? Which is not bad prediction for in the practice. However, for the professional analysis, this is a very high error. So normally the analysis error is within 5%. I mean, why there is such a huge prediction error? Can you give a guess? Yes?
The rent is too low.
Rent is too low. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, the data. It's because the data the original data we use for the analysis. Yes, that's good. Anything else?
Maybe the buyer really wanted to buy the house.
Yes. So in my analysis here is that we just do the analysis based on the theory, right? Some factors I didn't consider. Right, so here, as you mentioned, what's your name? Sorry, what's your name? Alpha.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Alpha mentioned, so we didn't include some subjective factor that may also influence the house price, right? So it's like, I mean, here we can find the errors. It could comes from the data we use. It's not accurate data, or it comes to the model we establish. So because the model we establish does not include the factor which actually actually works in this situation. Okay, so that's just an example, and here I mean, why I mention this is that so for this subject, I mean, it's not a subject test your mathematics, test your calculation. However, it does test you how you read or identify a problem or an issue, and how you decompose the issue, and how you read the issue. Okay? And again, then we move on to the supply side. Okay? This side is mostly the construction. So once we know how much we sell on the price, and the price will reflect on the construction, or on the developer side. And when the sale price or when the house price higher, if the cost or if the construction cost maintain the same level, that means what? That means the producer or the developer or the constructor, they can gain higher profit. See, so it's like they spend the same money, however, they can sell a higher price. In that case, good. In that case, the developer will going to produce more houses to gain the additional additional margin, right? So probably they will apply for more building approvals. They will buy more lands, and to get the extra profit or margin. So here is an example which is the temporal trends of building approvals and median house price for Melbourne. See where? The blue color is the house price. So this is the time trend of the house price. We see the price in the house price in Melbourne increase over the last 20 years, and also we can find the building approval increase as well. However, another thing maybe do you find is there any difference between these two lines? So the building approval moves flatter than the prices, right? So they probably go the same direction. However, they doesn't go with the same time. And then the new houses coming to the stock space, where that is the housing stock quadrant. Okay, here there were every 10 points there were a certain amount of houses they are out of the market because of maybe at the end of their life, or they are demolished for other uses, etc. And also in this quadrant, there are some other actions can be done to control the supply of housing stocks. So one example is that the developer or the builders, they can control the speed of their construction progress. So when it's a good time, maybe they will increase the speed to get the higher profit. And then if it is a bad time, they may just hold the project. Maybe when it's coming better, then they will start to release the house. So again, this is building approval, and the number of that's the building approval. That's the number of housing construction completion for quarter in Victoria. So what we can see, the number of building approval is much higher in each quarter is much higher than the number of construction completions. So that means it's not even the developer, they propose that they are going to develop this project. However, they probably are not going to complete it in the proposed time frame, or maybe they will hold the project for a period to just to maximize their benefits. So that's one thing, and another thing is the government. So in the housing stock, the government play a very important role to control the supply or the supply of new houses through the zoning or regulations. So, for example, if they don't want the too many high-rise buildings, maybe they separate houses. Maybe they have to revise the use of land and encourage a certain type of building. For example, here it set a certain requirement for the height, for the setbacks, etc. So in that way, the government can forbid a certain type of house out of the market, and to play the role as a space stock adjustment. And here it is the equilibrium in the four-quadrant model. For example, if the demand level is here, and then for this demand level, we can rent for the current housing stock, the rent is at R star, and reflect to the asset market, the houses was P star, and then at this at a certain construction cost, the P star value will make the developer to produce C star numbers of houses. So that's the in the stable condition, or in the equivalent. And when there is a shake, or when there is a shock or a change in the space demand, so for example, the demand in the space market increase from D0 to D1, what happens, then immediately the rent will go up to R1. So, and the increased rent will reflect a higher value of houses in the asset market, and the higher value in the housing market will indicate or will inform the construction or the developer, the developing sector to produce more houses. And then when the new house were put into the rent market, so because because there will be more stock on the market, then it will drop the rent down a little bit from R1 to R double star, and then it reflects to a new price, etc., and then to shape a new equilibrium at a new demand level. Okay, so that is how property market works. So it's like a dynamic and then equivalent, dynamic and then equivalent, and this will comes to the real estate property circle. So it's like always we can see there is a growth in construction, and then decline, and then recession, then where the price go down, and then it's come back to the recovery. And when we why we should know the property cycle is like when we analyze or to give the suggestion to our, for example, our clients, we will find out what's the position of current condition. Are we standing? Are we standing at the peak, or are we standing at the bottom, or in the middle? So it helps us to give more feedbacks or more comments on the future trends. This is the example of house prices and approvals. And finally, I just want to mention some tips or highlights that what we have to pay attention while we do the data analysis. As I mentioned, first of all is that find the right data, identify the proper parameters. So it's like it's not just like a game to see whether these 2 or 3 series data they have any correlations or not. Is that why we have to, before we establish the model, we have to think about why we should include this parameter. What are the parameters that all the factors influence the house price or influence the house demand, etc. Okay, so that's based on some theory. It's not just click on in your mind. So, and when you decide to exclude or exclude parameter or data or variable, or include an additional parameter or data or variable, it's for some reason. You must have a reason, okay? And once you define the parameters, you have to find the proper data. Which data, what type of data can fully or can best replace the parameter. Okay, for example, house price. Are we going to use the media price, or are we going to use the house price index? Okay, what are the difference? Why should we use the media price? Why should we use the house price index? So that requires you to be familiar or understand the data. And the second thing is that you're going to be creative on the information. Okay, so you again, it's like you have to be familiar with the information or data. For example, here, normally we always use the sold house price, right? And what are the limitations? So I think one limitation is that they just indicate the history. It does not represent or reflect the contemporary condition. So in that case, how can we improve this, or how can we interpret the results by considering this limitation? And also here, this is the estimate data, right? Estimate price or listing price. That's the listing price. This is not actual. It's just a guess. So is this reliable? Can we use this kind of data? So it just, when before you decide to make your final decision, just think several times. And that is what we expect you can do in your assignment 1. Okay. Another thing is that that's the take a structural analytical approach. So that, for example, when descriptive statistical analysis. So once we got our data, what are the features of the data? How can we tell the audience or the clients what's the features of the data? Normally we can run the using the statistical analysis to show what's the mean, what's the standard deviation, the changes, etc. And also, next step, probably we will do some regression or some statistic test. And fourth, which it is really hard to learn from others. It's based on your own experience and knowledge, which is the interpreting of the numbers. Okay, so in this subject, what I can tell you guys is the generalized meaning of numbers. For example, the mean, which is the average level. Okay, so for example, median price or the average price, $300,000. That's the average level. So what's the practical meaning of, is this higher or lower? It's just based on how you interpret, or what is your position to say the $300,000 is a higher price, is a lower price, or it's just a good price. Okay, and the standard deviation, the volatility. So you have to try to maybe not just the property knowledge. Okay, maybe you can use some urban planning knowledge to help you interpret your findings. Try to help you interpret your data to tell them, okay, these three, it does has its unique meaning. Okay, so what is that? And that is the, so we see we are professional in property. People spend like maybe $100 or $1,000 to buy our report. We must provide something, something that not the property person can provide, right? And I think that is all for today's lecture. And this is a video. We can quickly go to watching this video at the end for this lecture. Sorry about that. Okay, the wave is too strong. Nearly falling to the ground. Okay, thank you so much for your listening, and look forward to seeing you in the tutorial. And any questions, please send us an email or talk to me or your tutor in person in the tutorial. Thank you.